Yo, have you seen Space Jam 2 yet? If you haven't, it's a must-see. You need to see it ASAP. Callie saw it. Callie liked it. I saw it. I'm going to tell you what I thought about it. I got a little review for you today with what I saw, what I learned, all that. But it's not what you think. I try not to spoil it. Follow along. Let's go. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at RomeJohns, TikTok at RomyJohns. Follow our family vlog, which is in the description, as well as my handles are also in the description. So here we go. Space Jam 2 just came out July 16th here in the United States, probably elsewhere. I don't know exactly where. We just focusing on the United States, but we had to see it. Space Jam, in case you don't know what it is, the original Space Jam came out in 1996, and it was a movie where Michael Jordan himself, Sir Ernest, played in a basketball game with the Looney Tunes to help save them against a group of little monsters that stole the talent of the NBA players that called themselves the Monstars. So this big basketball game that Michael Jordan starred in, the Tunes won, obviously, so they were not enslaved. And now, with King LeBron James, it just came out to do something similar. Very, very similar movie, same concept. Instead of monsters, they take it digital. This was a movie that my mom took me to in 1996, and I really, really enjoyed it, even to this day. I even still watch it to this day. So Space Jam 2 coming out now. I was so excited to watch this with Callie because, for one, Callie likes bunnies. You see she likes buns and Miss Bunny. Well, this movie has Bugs Bunny and Lola Bunny, so I was hoping that once she saw them that she would gravitate towards the screen and just continue to watch it. She did, and that was great. It was amazing. It was an amazing bonding experience, but Space Jam 2 has so many nuggets in it, so many things that you can learn. Again, in 1996, I was a kid. I was 9 years old. This time, as a whole daddy, as somebody's daddy, there's so much that you could take away from this movie, not only from a parenthood standpoint, but from a life standpoint. These are the lessons I learned from Space Jam 2. So watching this as the first time as a parent, the first thing I noticed is projecting trauma on your children. So the very first scene, in order to not give spoilers, we're gonna just break down this trailer real quick.
Basketball camp is next weekend. You got amazing potential on the court, and I can help you get there.
That's not what I want, Dad.
But the very first scene in the trailer, you have LeBron and his son chatting about basketball versus video games. The kid is in the video games, LeBron is in the basketball, obviously, but LeBron wants him to play basketball and go to basketball camp. But the kid is like, hey, I would rather go to this video game camp. And so, but the real backstory behind this is when LeBron was younger growing up, a coach of his saw he was playing video games, took it from him, said he was wasting his time doing it. He needed to focus his attention elsewhere, which he focused on basketball, became one of the greatest basketball players ever. Fast forward to the movie. So now the son wants to blaze his own path. And so what we run into a lot of the times as parents, that we project what we went through as a kid onto our kids, thinking that it would be the exact same thing, or we're either preventing them from something or saving them from something, when in all reality, our same traumas of what happened 30, 40, 50, whatever it was years ago. So a perfect example of my parenting journey and where I tried to make sure that I did everything different was when Callie was born and she went to the NICU right away. There was this traumatic feeling of I had to be there. I had to be there with her every second of every day because of that loneliness I felt growing up, and thinking that Callie would have that same thing if she looked up and didn't see or feel any of her parents near her. And again, as she was hours old and days old, not even knowing if as an infant in the NICU right then and there would notice if I was there or not, we made a point to where we stretched ourselves thin to make sure that we were there for her, because again, my personal trauma of feeling alone, I didn't want her to feel that same thing and go through that same thing. And so I probably overdid it, trying to be a little extra present to where I ended up burning myself out. And so it's something that we see a lot, that a lot of people aren't actually aware that they're doing. But take a step back. If you are fearful of something, when you're raising your kids, if you are fearful about something that they're doing, another example is going on a boat. Some people are fearful that we went on a boat with Callie because they may not be the strongest swimmers, or they may not have had that experience on a boat. Well, we have, and it's something that we feel comfortable with, which is why we made the decision to do it, and why we took the precautions, the safety precautions we needed to do that exact same thing, is because we're not gonna let someone else's trauma and someone else's fear dictate what we do. And ultimately what you will see later in the movie when you watch it is that event of LeBron projecting trauma on his son caused a disconnect and a distance between their relationship. Number two, what you see in the second clip, individuality.
You never let me do what I want to do. You never let me just do me.
So what you have now is someone who is very passionate about basketball, wanting his son to play basketball like his oldest son does. But when the youngest son wants to continue to create video games, what you now have is the youngest son wants something different than what the father thinks he should want. And it's because the father's position of his son and his relationship with his son is very jaded. Of course, you would think naturally you have one kid that wants to play basketball. You're one of the best basketball players in the world, that everybody around you is going to want to, and that's not true. And what you have nowadays is a lot of parents don't take time to understand who their kids are individually. They, again, do the same thing. They either project some trauma onto their child based on a situation, or they ignore all the signs that their child is different and they force them to be a certain way. How many times have you sat back and understood that someone did something because they were forced? They were forced to play football growing up. They were forced to join the choir growing up. And it's maybe not something that they liked. And so an approach that we are taking with Callie, we said right away, if there's something that Callie shows interest in, that's automatically our interest. If Callie wants to be a singer, if Callie wants to be a music producer, if Callie wants to be a drummer, I'm gonna learn how to produce, I'm gonna learn how to engineer, we're gonna work with a vocal coach, we're gonna do everything to support her dream, because it's not about us. It doesn't matter what we want. Callie's mom ran the hurdles professionally in track, and she's not gonna force Callie on to running track. We're not gonna force Callie to do anything she doesn't wanna do. And so what you find and what you see in the movie is this disconnect just keeps growing further and further and further when the parents don't take a second to understand where their child is and what their child wants to do. Because in all reality, all we want, just speaking about from a child standpoint, even as an adult standpoint, all we want is support. Someone to support what we want to do, our likes, and help us achieve and get to where we're trying to go. Third, you have the compromise.
This is the Serververse.
What'd you do to my son? Where's Dom?
The only way you're getting your son back is if you and I play a little basketball. Pete, send this clown to the rejects.
What you see in this scene is Don Cheadle approaching LeBron and saying, hey, to get your son back, you're gonna have to play this game of basketball. And essentially, to kind of break down the scene and to give more context without overly spoiling, LeBron projected his trauma on his kid, wanted him to put down video games, play basketball. The kid is his own individual, and the kid wants to create video games and wants to double down on creating his video game, which later, before that entire scene, LeBron becomes a little more open to and wants to take a look and have a better understanding about what his son is into. So he has one foot into what his kid wants to do, and they basically play this video game. LeBron ends up breaking it, which is why now, fast forward to Don Cheadle coming in saying to get your son back, because now LeBron and his son's relationship, LeBron and Dom's relationship is not very good. There's a distance like this because Dom wants over here, LeBron wants over here. And now in order for LeBron to make up with his son, there has to be this compromise, which is this game with the Looney Tunes, the Space Jam game against the Goon Squad, to where now the compromise is in effect. So LeBron agrees to play this game to get his son back, because now his son is manipulated over here by people who are interested in the same thing that he is interested in. And so what you'll find is when kids are their own individual and you're trying to force them to do something that they don't want to do, especially it's what you want them to do, and that relationship continues to grow out further and further and further, the kid is going to continue going this way, and you're gonna stay stagnant. And what you see with a lot of parents is there's too much ego, there's too much pride to take a step the other way and try to be more accommodating and more understanding and more compromising to what the kid wants. And so I'm not exactly sure why there's a lot of being that way, but again, just relating it back to my parenthood journey, something that we haven't gone through yet, but something that we will. It's like, if there is, something that Callie wants to do, there's gonna be a discussion about it. We're gonna understand the facts on both sides, understand how we can support her. She's gonna understand where we feel she either should go with this same thing or maybe recommending a slight swerve over this way, but there's gonna be that conversation, because when it comes down to it, we want to make sure that she feels supported. And in the movie, LeBron's son Dom did not feel supported. Next, and I think this is where a lot of you parents have had a difficult time because of how you were raised, is this whole thing of admitting when you were wrong. If you're wrong, you're wrong. And ultimately, there needs to be, like, we're all growing, and this ego thing that I just mentioned, this pride thing that I just mentioned, I'm not exactly sure why. It doesn't matter what generation you came up and you were raised in. I'm not exactly sure why you can't remove yourself from that to say I'm sorry, to say I'm wrong, to repair a relationship, when you would rather just hold that in and have your child feeling a certain type of way. Or this is another conversation that Felicia and I have had. If the situation ever arises and we are ever wrong, and we are, again, Callie doesn't have to be right, but if we're wrong, we're gonna admit we are wrong, because we're human, and every parent is human. And I just don't understand how a lot of parents do not have the wherewithal to just remove themselves from the situation, especially when it comes to a relationship with their kid. They would rather be so prideful and hold on over here than to just be like, hey, my bad. And just the kid, just the walls and the foundation crumble down. But instead, what you have is a child, just like in the movie, when LeBron was clearly wrong, trying to point him over in this direction towards basketball, when Dom was over here towards video games. LeBron was clearly wrong to tell him to put down the games and focus on basketball camp. And it's something that I feel like, as new parents, as millennial parents, and even as Gen Z becomes parents, that we have to take that step and be better at admitting when we're wrong. If we have an argument with our friends and we're wrong, we say, hey, my bad, I was wrong. Maybe you don't. And that's another problem, because then that's just compounding things of where you can't let go of something and say sorry. So instead, each time someone's gonna build up a foundation, and the foundation continues to grow, and at one point it's gonna be impenetrable. And so the whole admitting when you were wrong thing, and you'll see it later in the movie. Of course, this is not a huge spoiler alert, because if you've seen the original Space Jam, you have an understanding on how it will go and how it plays out. But again, there's this admittance that I was wrong, and then what you do, the last thing that the movie teaches you, the reconciliation part. So
I need to assemble an elite team to help get my son back.
I know what you're looking for.
Whether or not LeBron thought his son should have put the game down to focus on basketball, because LeBron can make him the best basketball player ever, and he can build a career out of that. And even though the son Dom was not interested, the reconciliation part comes during the game with the Toons and the Goons, to where now LeBron is on this end now and saying, hey, that was my bad. I should have been more supportive to my son. I should have been more supportive to his game. And so now everything LeBron is trying to do is to reconcile that relationship with his son.
You gotta win this game.
Let's end this.
Got you, LeBron.
And get our son back.
And now his son sees that. His son sees how into this video game thing he is. And the big spoiler will actually come, at the end, that I don't want to speak on, but it definitely hits this point with the whole reconciliation thing. But taking it back to a parent standpoint, an applicable parent usage case, after you admit that you're wrong, you can make up with people. I just, want you to know that, like, you don't have to stay mad. They don't have to stay mad. You could have a conversation. You could smooth things over, because we do it in every other aspect of life. If we're at work and we mess up, sorry, you apologize to your team, you apologize to your boss, and you fix it. But we don't get that same thing at home for some reason. And I shouldn't say we. Some kids do not get that same kind of thing and treatment at home, because this ego thing, and this ego thing is something that you have to break down and break out of. And so I do want to say thank you again for tuning in. I tried not to spoil the big parts of the movie, but Space Jam, The New Legacy, or Space Jam 2, whatever you want to call it, it teaches you so much. There's so many little nuggets in there that you could pick up as a parent, that you can understand as someone, not even a parent, like maybe you're an uncle or an aunt, or maybe you're a grandma or a grandpa, or a sister or a brother, anything. It's basic life lessons on how to treat people. I'm just focusing on parenting a kid. So hit that subscribe, follow us on all the socials. We'll catch you later. Have a good one. Go check out the movie.